The fabric of reality rippled slightly as Xylarthos, the Star Weaver, echo of the void, materialized in the center of the Intergalactic Entity Processing Center's lobby. The fluorescent lights flickered momentarily, and several smaller entities waiting in line experienced a brief disorientation as the space-time continuum adjusted to accommodate the ancient cosmic consciousness who had witnessed the birth and death of millions of galaxies. Xylarthos had chosen to manifest in a form that mortals might comprehend without their minds shattering. A swirling vortex of pure energy, constantly shifting between deep purples, cosmic blues, and the occasional flash of a color that didn't exist in the visible spectrum. Tendrils of dark matter extended from what might generously be interpreted as shoulders, and where a face might be expected, there was instead a pattern of stars forming and collapsing in endless cycles. The IPC, Sector 734, Delta Chronogate, was exactly as disappointing as Xylarthos had feared. Sterile beige walls stretched toward an unnecessarily high ceiling. The hard plastic chairs bolted to the floor were arranged in neat rows, most occupied by entities of various forms and origins. Large digital displays mounted on the walls flashed seemingly random strings of numbers and identification codes. Gamma, 9 entity, number 34 Pyr superscript 2, please proceed to counter 12. The air carried the faint scent of ozone and subtle desperation. Xylarthos had expected a certain reaction upon arrival. A hushed silence of awe, officials falling to their knees. Perhaps a spontaneous restructuring of the local reality in response to the sheer magnificence of an entity born of the first Big Bang. At the very least, immediate acknowledgement of superiority and prompt service. Instead, the entity received a glance, not even a full look, from a middle-aged human woman behind the main processing counter. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, glasses perched precariously on the bridge of her nose. Her expression conveyed the specific flavor of weariness unique to those who have seen too much while being paid too little. Her desk was cluttered with data terminals, a mechanical stamping device that looked positively archaic, and a mug of cold coffee bearing the legend, "Don't talk to me until I process my first Zeta-class entity." The nameplate on her desk identified her as Agnes Periwinkle, Level 3 Entity Processing Specialist. Xylarthos expanded slightly, allowing more of its multidimensional consciousness to seep into this limited three-dimensional space. The temperature dropped by several degrees. The characters on the nearest display began to dance chaotically. When it spoke, its voice resonated from multiple points in space simultaneously, creating an effect similar to a cosmic choir. "I am Xylarthos, born of the first moment, shaper of galaxies, weaver of cosmic strings. I demand audience with your highest authority or immediate processing. My existence transcends your trivial procedures." Agnes Periwinkle typed a few commands into her terminal without looking up. She glanced at her screen, sipped her cold coffee, and replied in a tone that was professional but utterly indifferent. "Sorry, unidentified entity XYL Alpha. The queue starts over there. Please take a number from the automated dispenser and wait until called." Xylarthos shifted its form, generating a small gravitational anomaly that caused several loose papers to flutter across Agnes's desk. "Perhaps you misunderstand. I am not merely an entity. I have witnessed the birth of your species. I have shaped the very stars your ancestors used to navigate. I exist simultaneously across 17 dimensions and can reorganize the atomic structure of this facility with a mere thought." Agnes finally looked up, but only to push her glasses back up her nose. "Sir, or equivalent, I understand you believe yourself to be exceptional. So does everyone else in this queue. Policy requires all conscious entities, regardless of dimensional origin, energy classification, or self-proclaimed divine status, to follow standard intake procedures." She gestured toward a small machine dispensing paper tickets near the entrance. "Number dispenser is over there." Xylarthos remained hovering in place, the cosmic patterns within its form swirling more rapidly, the equivalent of a divine stunned silence. This was unprecedented. In its billions of years of existence, it had been worshipped, feared, occasionally challenged by other cosmic entities, but never bureaucratized. This is unacceptable. I shall simply rewrite your perception of reality to accommodate my immediate processing. Xylar thus extended a tendril of thought toward Agnes's mind, only to encounter what felt like a wall of perfect indifference. Agnes sighed. Standard office-grade mental shield, standard issue for all IPC employees. Now, per Intergalactic Administrative Regulation 117, subsection C, paragraph. For all conscious entities, regardless of dimensional origin, energy level, or self-proclaimed divine status, must undergo initial registration and assessment procedures at a designated IPC facility before being granted operational or residential permits within space controlled by the Galactic Management Treaty. She slid a pamphlet across the counter. I suggest you familiarize yourself with the basic regulations while waiting. Attempting to modify reality without proper clearance is a Class 3 violation, subject to interdimensional fines and possible energy dampening. The cosmic being that had once rearranged entire star clusters to spell out its name as a demonstration of power now found itself floating toward the number dispenser, trailing wisps of dark matter in its wake. The ticket it reluctantly extracted read Omega Prime 7 942 108. The current number displayed on the main screen was Omega Prime 42. If Xylar thus had possessed traditional organic features, it would have blanched. Instead, its swirling energy pattern temporarily adopted a distinctly paler hue. Finding an unoccupied chair designed to accommodate entities of various physical compositions, Xylar thus settled in to wait. The entity reduced its manifestation to occupy less space, a courtesy to the crystalline being sitting nearby who was clearly uncomfortable with the gravitational distortions Xylar thus naturally produced. The crystalline being, a structure of perfect geometric patterns that refracted light in mesmerizing ways, turned slightly towards Xylar thus. Its voice sounded like wind chimes colliding with mathematics. First time, eh? They're not so bad once you get used to the system. Been this way since the 7th Galactic Territorial War. I'm old enough to remember when it was chaos. Creators and destroyers battling over the same domains. Nasty business. Xylar thus vibrated slightly in acknowledgement. I have existed since the primordial expansion. I do not get in line. The crystalline entity emitted a sound that might have been laughter. That's what Zormagnans the Reality Bender said. He's working as a celestial traffic director now. Couldn't get his interdimensional manipulation license without the proper forms. It extended a crystalline appendage in greeting. I'm Crystallock, by the way. Class AA, Crystalline Consciousness, 3rd Refraction. Been coming here for renewals every millennium or so. Across the waiting area, a group of newly emerged deities from the 5th dimension were anxiously reviewing what appeared to be new entity welcome packets. They looked like overlapping geometric shadows with occasional bursts of pastel energy, and they huddled together, pointing at various sections of their materials with appendages that seemed to exist and not exist simultaneously. See those youngsters? Crystallock indicated the 5th dimensional group. Emerged during a quantum fluctuation last week. Already learned to fill out Form IPC 982 for simultaneous multi-location manifestation permission. Smart kids. Nearby, a being that resembled an organized cloud of plasma was deftly completing a complex 3-dimensional form with energy tentacles, occasionally referring to what appeared to be a pocket-sized rule book titled IPC Regulations, abridged edition, only 7,000 pages. As Xylar thus observed the various entities around it, a diminutive figure approached. The entity resembled a miniature nebula, complete with swirling gases and tiny points of light that might have been stars. Despite its cosmic appearance, it wore what looked suspiciously like a bow tie made of condensed stellar matter. First timer, eh? Name's Barnaby. Been through this rodeo about 16 billion years now. The small nebula extended what might have been a hand. Saw you talking with Crystallock. Good egg, that one, though a bit rigid in their thinking. Barnaby chuckled at his own joke. Xyler thus ignored the extended appendage. I have manipulated the fundamental forces of creation. I have witnessed the light of the first stars. I should not be subjected to paperwork. Barnaby made a sound like distant stellar winds. That's what they all say at first. Listen, friendly advice. When you get to Appendix G12, declaration of known or potential temporal paradoxes, just tick not applicable, even if you've caused a few. Trust me, the paperwork for declaring paradoxes is a paradox itself. Never ends. Before Xylothos could respond, the digital display flickered, and a pleasant but entirely artificial voice announced, Entity Omega, Prime, 7, 942, 108, please proceed to counter 7. That's you, big fellow. Barnaby gave what might have been a thumbs up. Remember, keep the cosmic ego in check. These administrators have seen it all. Xylothos approached counter 7, where Agnes Periwinkle was now waiting, a stack of forms neatly arranged before her. She didn't look up as the cosmic entity approached, instead tapping efficiently on her terminal. Unidentified entity XYL Alpha. I'll need you to complete the following initial registration packet. She pushed forward several multi-page forms. Form IPC 001. Primary Entity Registration Declaration. Form IPC 042B. Self-Assessment Energy Level Classification and Potential Liability Waiver. Form IPC 999Z. Acknowledgement of Understanding Standard Interaction Protocols. Xylothos's cosmic patterns swirled in confusion as it examined the forms. There were fields requesting information such as primary residential address, specify sector, space-time coordinates, and dimensional vibration frequency. Source of life-sustaining energy, attach spectral analysis, if applicable, and list all large-scale reality alteration actions within past 10 millennia. I exist everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. I do not have an address. Agnes sighed. Section 4, Paragraph C addresses non-localized entities. Use form Addendum NL 7 for Spatial Temporal Distribution Declaration. She produced yet another form from a drawer. Please be advised that entities claiming omnipresence must provide proof of at least partial manifestation in a minimum of 3 recognized dimensional planes. Xylothos reluctantly began completing the forms, using a tendril of pure energy to manipulate the pen Agnes provided. The cosmic being found it surprisingly difficult to condense billions of years of existence into the standardized fields. How does one quantify the power to alter reality in a checkbox format? What does one put under previous employment when one's entire existence has been spent manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe? After completing what felt like an eternity of paperwork, though in reality was only 47 minutes by the IPC's standardized temporal measurement, Xylothos returned the forms to Agnes, who began reviewing them with methodical precision. She said, tapping at her screen. You've indicated an energy classification of omega plus infinity on Form 042b. That exceeds our standard classification matrix. She pressed a button on her terminal. This will require additional review by the Department of Advanced Reality Instability Risk Assessment. A screen descended from the ceiling, flickering to life to reveal a young man with enthusiastic eyes and the kind of smile that suggested an unhealthy love of regulations. He wore a crisp uniform with the acronym DERIRA emblazoned on the pocket. Hello there. Kevin Michaels, Junior Assessment Officer, DERIRA. I understand we have an Omega Plus classification situation. His voice carried the chipper quality of someone who genuinely enjoyed bureaucratic procedures. Agnes nodded. Entity XYL Alpha has self-reported capabilities exceeding standard matrices, including but not limited to dark matter manipulation, local physics rewriting, gravitational wave communication, and simultaneous multidimensional existence. Kevin's eyes widened with what appeared to be delight rather than concern. Fascinating. We'll need to process Form IPC 043X, Exceptional Energy Appendix, and Form DERIRA 007. Potential environmental impact report due to presence. Also, have you completed the mandatory Omega-level cosmic intervention ethics course? All entities capable of fundamental reality manipulation are required to have certification before being granted operational permits. Xylarthas's form flickered slightly in what might have been cosmic exasperation. I have existed for billions of your years. I have no need for ethics courses. Kevin's smile didn't waver. Actually, that's exactly the demographic the course was designed for. Entities existing pre-universal regulations often require the most comprehensive ethical updating. I'll send over the course materials. It's just a quick 7,000-year curriculum that can be compressed into a week of intensive study if you temporarily expand your consciousness to accommodate accelerated information absorption. While waiting for the additional forms to be processed, Xylarthas observed other entities being processed at nearby counters. At counter 3, a weather deity was having their application for storm generation rejected. I'm sorry, but your precipitation consistency records show significant discrepancies, the administrator was explaining to the dejected-looking cloud being. You'll need to complete Form W-405, Rainfall Accuracy Improvement Plan, before we can reconsider your application for Class 3 atmospheric manipulation. At counter 9, a multidimensional entity that resembled a geometric impossibility was receiving a citation. Unauthorized, non-synchronized manifestation in public sectors, the administrator was saying sternly. This is your third violation this century. One more, and we'll have to restrict you to single-plane existence for a rehabilitative period. The absurdity of the situation was beginning to erode Xylarthas's cosmic confidence. For millennia, it had existed with absolute power, reshaping reality at will. Now it was being told its very existence needed to be categorized, regulated, and approved. A disturbing thought surfaced in what passed for Xylarthas's mind. Was power truly absolute if it had to conform to rules? Was there some logic behind this bureaucratic chaos that even a cosmic entity couldn't perceive? While contemplating these uncomfortable questions, Xylarthas noticed a small sign near the waiting area. Entity Support Group. Third Cosmic Cycle, Every Rotation. Beneath it, in smaller print, this week's topic, Ancient Beings Facing Modern Regulations. Finding your place in the bureaucratic cosmos. Intrigued and having nothing better to do while waiting for Darira's assessment, Xylarthas drifted toward the indicated meeting room, where a circle of chairs held an assortment of clearly ancient entities. A being that appeared to be made of primordial darkness was speaking, and that's when I realized I've been creating black holes for eons without a permit. Can you imagine? Me, Vorex the Voidbringer, filling out an accidental stellar consumption report for each galaxy I've absorbed. Murmurs of sympathy came from the circle, including a being that seemed to be composed entirely of mathematical equations and a pair of what looked like sentient quantum fluctuations holding manifested appendages in solidarity. The group facilitator, a serene-looking entity with the appearance of flowing liquid light, noticed Xylarthas hovering at the entrance. Welcome, new friend. Please join us. We're all ancient entities adjusting to the regulated cosmos. Hesitantly, Xylarthas joined the circle, reducing its manifestation to a more conversational size. Would you like to introduce yourself? The facilitator asked gently. I am Xylarthas, born of the cosmic being paused, noticing the polite but slightly tired expressions of the other entities. I'm Xylarthas. I shape realities. We're used to before. All this. It gestured vaguely toward the IPC center beyond the door. You're among friends here, Xylarthas, the facilitator said. Many of us remember the days before the regulations, before the great creator duplication incident. A ripple of discomfort passed through the group at the mention of this event. What incident? Xylarthas asked, curiosity temporarily overriding indignation. An entity that resembled a moving constellation sighed, stars briefly dimming. About 60 million years ago, by standard temporal measurement. three separate creator entities attempted to claim the same unformed pocket universe. Each tried to establish dominance by duplicating their creation patterns. The resulting reality overlap created the Great Paradox Cascade. 17 dimensions collapsed, added a being that looked like a sentient aurora. Reality fractured across three galactic superclusters. It took the combined effort of every major cosmic entity to stabilize existence again. That's when the first Intergalactic Entity Management Treaty was established, the facilitator explained. A framework to prevent cosmic entities from accidentally destroying reality through uncoordinated actions. The IPC grew from that initial agreement. But the paperwork, Xylar thus began, is annoying, yes, the constellation being chuckled. But consider the alternative. Before regulations, it was chaos. The Seventh Galactic Territorial War alone wiped out trillions of sentient beings because two Omega-class entities couldn't agree on who had the right to manipulate a particular spiral arm of the Andromeda Galaxy. Xylar thus fell silent, processing this information. The being had indeed witnessed conflicts between powerful entities before, had even participated in a few reality-reshaping disputes in its younger eons. The idea that these bureaucratic procedures, however tedious, might be preventing cosmic catastrophes was not entirely unreasonable. When Xylar thus returned to the main processing area, it approached Agnes's counter with a slightly altered perspective. Instead of hovering imposingly, it adjusted its form to a more appropriate height. I have a question about subsection 7C in the Code of Multidimensional Interaction Regulations, Xylar thus said, its voice still echoing, but at a much reduced volume. The wording seems ambiguous regarding energy transference across non-consecutive dimensions. Agnes looked up, the faintest hint of approval in her expression. Good catch. There was a revision 2 cosmic cycles ago. Let me get you the updated appendix. She pressed a button, and a holographic document materialized. This clarification should help with completing your Derira 007 form. As Xylar thus carefully reviewed the document and continued filling out forms with greater attention to detail, a commotion erupted at the far end of the waiting area. 2 smaller energy entities, one with the appearance of flowing water, the other resembling a mountain landscape in miniature, were arguing loudly. The Crimson Nebula is clearly within my domain, the water entity burbled angrily. My essence has flowed through its cosmic streams for 20,000 years. Preposterous, the mountain entity rumbled. The solid matter formations bear my signature vibration frequency. It is under my protection. Their argument escalated, energy bolts of modest power shooting between them, causing the vending machine nearby to short-circuit in a shower of sparks. Several smaller entities scattered, seeking cover behind chairs. Xylar thus expected chaos to ensue. Perhaps this would finally break the irritating calm of the IPC, proving that cosmic forces couldn't truly be contained by mere regulations and forms. Instead, Agnes calmly pressed a button on her console. Code 45B at Section Omega. Q position 583. Minor energy discharge incident. Almost immediately, 2 administrators appeared, one of them Kevin from Derira on a hovering screen. Agnes recited Regulation 45C, prohibition of directed energy usage within IPC facilities, while Kevin simultaneously cited the low-level cosmic resource dispute resolution procedure. The 2 quarreling entities were promptly separated, each escorted to different waiting areas after being issued violation forms. Form V009, Administrative Violation Report, to complete. The entire incident, which might have escalated into a reality-distorting confrontation in the unregulated cosmos, was resolved in under 3 minutes. The other entities in the waiting area barely looked up from their forms. Xylar thus watched this efficient handling of a potential crisis with newfound appreciation. The system wasn't merely annoying bureaucracy. It was a complex mechanism, refined through catastrophes, designed to impose necessary order on a universe filled with incomprehensible powers. It was like traffic control for gods, preventing collisions that might destroy reality itself. With this new understanding, Xylarthos returned to its forms with genuine effort. There was an odd satisfaction in organizing the documentation correctly, in ensuring every piece of information was accurately represented as required. After several more hours of processing, consultations, and form revisions, Xylarthos finally presented the completed package to Agnes. She reviewed the materials with methodical precision, occasionally nodding slightly, the closest thing to emotional display she had shown all day. "You've missed a minor detail here," she said, pointing to a specific line. "Please capitalize the first letter in the name of the 17th dimension." After Xylarthos made the correction, Agnes took her mechanical stamping device and brought it down on the first page with a resounding thunk. The impression left behind read, "Approved, Omega classification," in bold red letters. A strange feeling washed over Xylarthos. Relief, perhaps, and oddly enough, a peculiar sense of legitimacy. The power was still there, the cosmic awareness unchanged, but its perception of its place in the universe had shifted. Agnes handed over an official IPC identification card, made from a material that could withstand core star temperatures, valid for 500 standard galactic cycles, and a digital welcome package. "Congratulations on your successful registration, Entity Xylarthos," Agnes said, her tone professionally pleasant. "Your official designation is now Omega-class Cosmic Entity XYL 7734 Alpha. This grants you operational permissions within treaty-controlled space, subject to the limitations and reporting requirements outlined in your approval documentation." Xylarthos accepted the identification card, studying the holographic image that somehow captured its ever-shifting form in a recognizable pattern. "What are these?" "Reporting requirements. Standard procedure for all registered entities," Agnes explained. "Chapter 3 of your Registered Entity Handbook covers miracle performance optimization and reporting. Chapter 7 details tax obligations on universal constant modification income. You'll want to pay particular attention to Appendix B, reality restructuring permit application processes. There's a bulk submission discount if you're planning multiple adjustments." The digital package also contained advertisements for workshops on efficient divine energy source management and interdimensional communication skills in administrative settings. As Xylarthos prepared to leave the IPC, Agnes added, "Your first quarterly report will be due at the end of this cosmic cycle. Forms will be automatically sent to your registered dimensional frequency. Remember that failing to file reports may result in temporary suspension of reality-altering privileges." Xylarthos emerged from the Intergalactic Entity Processing Center, gazing out at the universe with altered perception. The galaxies, nebulae, and black holes were still there, but now they seemed overlaid with an invisible layer of regulations and procedures. It wasn't necessarily an unpleasant realization. There was a certain comfort in understanding the structure that maintained order among chaos. Near the exit gates, Xylarthos encountered a fiery entity, clearly young and arrogant, attempting to push past a minor security official. The newcomer was a swirling vortex of plasma and stellar fire, radiating the kind of confidence that comes from never having been challenged. "I am Pyranax, devourer of stars, master of the eternal flame," the entity was proclaiming loudly. "Your pathetic barriers cannot contain my glory. I have consumed 7 solar systems this millennium alone. I demand immediate audience with your superiors." The security entity, a modest collection of organized light particles, was patiently but firmly explaining the entry procedures. All entities, regardless of consumption record, must register at the appropriate intake desk. Xylarthos observed the scene with a strange sense of déjà vu. Had it really been only hours ago that it had made similar proclamations? The cosmic being sighed, a newly learned behavior. With a voice that had shed a few dimensions of echo but gained a touch of practical weariness, Xylarthos addressed the fiery newcomer. "Hey kid, the line starts over there." It pointed toward the IPC entrance. "And pick up a set of IPC 001 forms while you're at it." Saves time. Pyranax flared in indignation. Do you know who I am? I could incinerate this entire facility with a thought. Sure you could, Xylothos replied calmly. And then you'd have to fill out Form D, 897, Unscheduled Structural Dematerialization Report, in triplicate, plus face a disciplinary hearing before the Committee for Maintaining Existential Continuity. Trust me, the paperwork for destroying the IPC is worse than the registration process. The fiery entity flickered uncertainly. But I'm a god. We all are, in our own way, Xylothos said, surprising itself with a philosophical turn. But even gods need proper documentation in an organized cosmos. Somewhat reluctantly, Pyranax drifted toward the entrance, muttering something about the indignity and former glory of chaotic creation. As Xylothos watched the young entity disappear into the IPC, it reflected on the paradoxical nature of cosmic power. The ability to shape galaxies might define a god, but it was bureaucracy, with its forms and regulations, that truly shaped how those powers interacted in a civilized universe, or at least a human-managed one. Universal order, it turned out, was built on the foundation of carefully stamped paperwork. Adjusting its identification card to a more comfortable position within its energy field, Xylothos officially registered Omega-class cosmic entity XYL 7734 Alpha drifted away from the IPC and into the structured chaos of the regulated cosmos, already mentally preparing for its first quarterly report.